While the Mets got screwed over by a bogus triple play call on Friday night, one play does not define a baseball game, and the Mets had every opportunity to win it anyway.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. I'm a little bit rusty on this whole podcasting after a loss thing. It's been a minute as the Mets had reeled off 7 wins in a row and just didn't look like they were ever going to lose with the way they were playing baseball at home. They hit the road, and it was a sloppy game. Now, there's a lot that went into this one, and the biggest thing that we're going to talk about to lead things off, of course, was the bogus triple play. That is your big headline. That's the flashy play. That's the thing you can throw around and say, man, if this didn't happen, the Mets would have won. And in a lot of respects, you are probably right, because the game would have been completely different if not for a ridiculous call in the 4th inning. Prior to that, Jake Irvin was pretty much cruising. First inning, there was an error that allowed Juan Soto to reach first and then advance to second base on the play. Pete Alonso drew a walk. Then Brandon Nimmo rolled one over. Mark Vientos hit one very hard, just right at Dylan Cruz to end that inning. It was a 25-pitch inning for Irvin. He settled in, needed 13 pitches to get through the next inning, 16 to get through the following one. He retired the side in order in the second, gave up just a 2-out single to Soto in the third, through 3 innings. He's sitting at 54 pitches. So not great, but certainly good, right? He's averaging 18 inning if math serves. Yeah, I think I'm right about that. So he's in a decent spot. But the Mets have an opportunity to really work Irvin out of the game early. Not in the 4th inning, but maybe after 6. First 2 guys get hits in that 4th inning. Brandon Nimmo leadoff single. Mark Vientos gets a base hit as well. So you got runners at first and second, nobody out. And Jesse Winker hits a missile at 107 miles per hour at the first baseman, Nathaniel Lowe. Now, Lowe catches the ball, but if you look at the replay review, it clearly one-hopped into his mitt. He trapped it on the dirt. So that should have been an instance where the Mets still have some traffic on the bases and maybe a chance to have a real rally that results in some runs scored. But instead, it's an inning-ending triple play. I guess every triple play ends the inning, huh? That was kind of an... they don't come up that often. I never thought about it. But regardless, when Lowe catches the ball, you see him immediately start running back to first, and then he flips it over to second. My assumption is he heard the first base umpire behind him signal it wasn't out, and so he decides to throw to second base. They get the out there. They return the throw back to first, and it turns into a triple play. And it's an unreviewable call, which I don't understand how Major League Baseball decided what is reviewable, what's not reviewable. Can we just review everything so that we don't get blatant plays like this that are just obvious mistakes? Because if they had been able to review it, the Mets might have had bases loaded, nobody out. Because technically, on the play, he doesn't field it cleanly for the out. Okay, he traps it. Nimmo standing on third. Vientos is standing on second. The throw doesn't get to second base before Vientos. And the throw doesn't come back to first before Winker. So really, if they had a replay review, the Mets should have had the bases loaded with nobody out. Now, if you went by discretion and you said, all right, well, what would have happened if this was ruled correctly on the field? Lowe would have tagged first base, and the Mets would have had runners at second and third, nobody out. And guess what? To lead off the next inning, Francisco Alvarez gets a base hit. So that could be 2 runs for the Mets right there. Now, instead of having Jake Irvin with a couple runs in potentially and still laboring through a rally by the Mets where everybody's hitting the ball hard, he gets out of the inning in 8 pitches and is sitting at 62 pitches through 4 innings, and he finds a great rhythm after that. He's pitching into the 8th inning. So it was a massive swing, absolutely. And the Nationals bullpen's horrible, and once the Mets get into that Nationals bullpen, they started scoring runs. Jeff McNeil got a leadoff single in the 8th inning off of Irvin. Tyrone Taylor hits a ground ball. There's a force out at second, but Taylor beats out the double play. So you still have a runner on. They went to the bullpen to face Francisco Lindor. He pops up. So there's 2 outs, a man on. Soto gets a base hit. Pete Alonso draws a walk to load the bases. Brandon Nimmo comes up. He gets a hit to score a run. Then they go to Kyle Finnegan, their closer, to try to get out of the bases loaded jam. And Mark Vientos hits one over the first baseman's head into right field that just goes into no man's land. Dylan Cruz tries to go full extension to make a diving catch, can't come up with it, and it turns into a bases clearing triple. So you can look at it 2 different ways. On one end, you could say, man, if the Mets had gotten into that Nationals bullpen earlier in the game, they would have scored way more runs. That's a fair assumption to make. You can also say, if Mark Vientos hits that ball a little bit harder, it's a fly out, and the Mets don't score anything in that inning, and they were fortunate that that ball fell. The way I look at it, the Mets still had a lead going into the 9th inning. They still carried a 4-3 lead going into the 9th. And there was also mistakes made throughout the game. 2nd inning, Brandon Nimmo, it's 2 outs, nobody on. The Mets had just turned a double play. Nimmo fields a single and makes a bonehead mental mistake where he throws the ball to 3rd instead of to 2nd, and that allows Dylan Cruz to take an extra base, and then Cruz scores on a flare base hit. That would not have been a run scored if Nimmo had thrown the ball to the proper base. But he doesn't. That's 1 run difference in a game where the Mets lose by a run. You also had a play that probably didn't result in much of a difference in the score because Dylan Cruz likely would have came around anyway, but there was in the 7th inning when Oscar Braziban was on the mound, a little chopper that he couldn't come up with, and it ends up being a hit, but it absolutely should have been an out. He just made a bad play on that one. I think Cruz would have scored anyway. Even if Braziban fielded it, the chance of him fielding it, coming to home and making a clean throw and everything, there's very slim chances they would have gotten the out at the plate. But still, that was just another example of sloppy baseball by the New York Mets. And then you get to the 9th inning when the Mets have the lead. And I guess even though Edwin Diaz is not on the IL, he was not available for this one. So they go to Ryan Stanek to try to get the save. Dylan Cruz leads off the inning, hitting one to the warning track. Juan Soto has it in his glove and just can't make the catch. It would have been a good catch. It was a leaping catch, but he, had it hit the top of his glove, just couldn't reel it in. That turns into a triple. Then with an infield draw in, Jose Tena rips a ground ball past the diving Jeff McNeil for a base hit that scores a run. Mets finally get a ground out, McNeil to Lindor for 1 out. Then A.J. Minter comes on to face C.J. Abrams left on left, gets a ground ball to Vientos, forced out at 2nd. Then James Wood comes up, hits the walk-off, a ground ball up the middle. Remember, Abrams is on first base. And McNeil should have gotten to that ball, should have laid out, try to stop it at all costs, but he thinks he can get there on the backhand, doesn't. The ball kicks off of his foot, so that slows it down from getting to Tyrone Taylor, who still comes up firing and just barely misses on getting Abrams at the plate to throw. Nearly got there in time, but Abrams was able to dive in. If that was a second sooner that he was able to get to the baseball because it didn't kick off of McNeil's foot, maybe it's an out the plate. Taylor also gunned down a runner trying to stretch a single into a double in the 8th inning. So saw his value defensively in this game. But again, it was just a couple of things that didn't go the Mets' way. And part of that is a product of winning 7 games in a row. At some point, the luck is going to turn, but also the mental mistakes and everything else add up. And Nimmo's play was a brutal one. And, the Mets just, it wasn't their night. And it's that simple. The one thing I will say is I've seen a lot of second guessing from Mets fans after this loss, which is crazy just considering the fact that this team just won 7 in a row. Can we just give them the benefit of the doubt and not try to nitpick every little thing? But the thing that I saw a lot of is Carlos Mendoza made a mistake not putting in his best defenders in that 9th inning. And if you want to say Acuna should be subbed in for Jeff McNeil for defense in late inning situations, it's not a horrible take because Acuna is a quicker, more rangier fielder than McNeil. And I think if he was out there, he would have at least knocked down that final ball and kept it in the infield and prevented C.J. Abrams from scoring from first on a ground ball. So sure, there's every chance that the next batter would have gotten a base hit anyway, but fine. I can somehow wrap my mind around that. The fact that I saw some people saying that Jose Azocar should have been subbed in for Juan Soto is the most ridiculous take I've ever seen. And I had to mark that and acknowledge that on the show that some people we're saying that Juan Soto shouldn't be playing right field in the 9th inning. Look, Soto is not the best defender in right. But guess what? Jose Azocar might not catch that ball anyway. And let's just say you get to extra innings and it's Jose Azocar that's due up second in extra innings because you subbed out Juan Soto. You're out of your mind. Okay. Juan Soto is not going to be subbed out for defense. It's just not going to happen. The only way he'd get subbed out for defense is if he made the final out the inning before. And even then, I think Carlos Mendoza would just be hesitant to do it because if the game stretches into extra innings, you never know when his bat might have come up again. And so you're just not going to see the Mets make that move often. If you want to, say that Acuna should have been out there, I can at least hear that out as a sound argument. The idea that Soto should have been on the bench for Jose Azocar in the 9th inning, that's just laughable. But again, the Mets lose this game because of some of the mental mistakes. And yes, that triple play was ridiculous. It could have been a completely different ball game. But again, sometimes the way baseball works, you had a bunch of things that went right for the Mets to win 7 in a row, and they create a lot of their own luck. But the ball bounces the right way when you're rolling, and at some point it's going to bounce the wrong way. And that's what I think ultimately happened here. I don't think it is any indictment of what this team is and what they'll continue to be. And I have all the faith in the world that they'll get right back at it and get into it this series and hopefully even it up and give themselves a chance to still win a series in DC here. But rough game. Next segment, I want to talk about Kodai Senga's pitching performance and do a little bit of a preview ahead into what we're going to watch this afternoon as the Mets take on the Nationals again. But before we get into any of that, a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Monarch Money makes managing money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. Now, lost in all of the weird defense and the late inning drama, Kodai Senga had another really nice start. 6 innings, allowed 2 runs on 6 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts in the game. One of those runs should not have come across. Again, Brandon Nimmo's mental mistake cost Senga an earned run early in the game. 3rd inning, though, was really impressive because Senga gives up a leadoff single, then a triple that nearly goes out for a 2-run homer. So he's got a runner on 3rd base, nobody out. And he pitched his way out of that jam without giving up a 2nd run, which was super impressive. First guy that he gets out, James Wood on a fork ball that he just barely put in play, and Alvarez was able to get the force at first while looking back the runner at 3rd. And then he picked up a couple of strikeouts. So it just shows you, again, Kodai Senga's ability to pitch to contact and have low pitch innings to get deep into starts. But at the same time, when he gets into trouble and he needs strikeouts, he is able to tighten things up and keep the ball out of play, essentially, and get himself out of jams. We're looking at a guy, and it's early. It's been, what was this, 5 starts for Senga, or is this his 6th start? But regardless, we're looking at an early season Cy Young candidate. And it's early, and a lot is going to happen. And there's other pitchers who are outstanding in the National League, like a Paul Skeens, that are going to be right in the mix the whole way through. But he's pitching as well as anybody in Major League Baseball. Now it is 5 starts, a 1.26 ERA. He's got 25 strikeouts and 28 2/3 innings pitched, 9 walks. He's just been ridiculously solid. And you're seeing start after start after start. He's getting more comfortable, and now he was up to 96 pitches in this one. So he's going to be able to go deeper and deeper into games, and he's already going fairly deep into games. Last 3 starts, he's pitched into the 6th inning. His start against the A's, he had his Maddox of 7 innings on 79 pitches. Last start came 1 out away from finishing the 6th inning. This one, he does finish 6 on the 96 pitches. He's every bit of an ace right now. And if the Mets can keep him on this, this 5 days rest, at least every single start, pitching once a week, and just really monitor him and have him just stay in this rhythm all year long, you're looking at a guy that's going to finish the year and have, probably somewhere close to the 29 starts he had in 2023. And in those 29 starts, he can be ridiculously effective. He can keep that ERA below 3 all season. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And he might not win the Cy Young, but he's a guy that can finish in the top 5 very easily. I mean, he has that level of stuff. The ghost fork is one of the best pitches in baseball. And when he has a really good cutter that he can go to in any count to try to pitch to contact, get outs, keep people off of his ghost fork, when he has the good fastball that he's able to locate up in the zone and get swing and miss, or sometimes he can dot it in the lower part of the zone if people are sitting on the fork ball and he can steal some strikes early in counts. There's so many things that he can do with his arsenal when he is right, and it just reminds you of what Kodai Senga can be. I think last year some Mets fans got a sour taste in their mouth because he didn't pitch well in the playoffs, but that was a guy that was basically on rehab in high leverage situations. It just was never a great idea to even have him out there. And I understand why the Mets did, because it's a high upside arm and your staff is worn down after a full season. I don't blame the Mets for having him out there, but that wasn't Kodai Senga. This is Kodai Senga, and it is a huge, huge boost to this team to have him healthy right now. Now, other couple notes that I have from this game that I didn't get to quite yet. Again, Tyrone Taylor, incredible defense. You see his value out there. Brandon Nimmo made the mental error, but then after that was rock solid in his at-bats, hit the ball hard all 3 times, got a couple of hits. So hopefully this is maybe a moment where Nimmo can turn a little bit of a corner. Mark Vientos, a 2-hit game. Good to see. Juan Soto, 2 hits as well. McNeil and Alvarez each got a hit in their first game, and I think they both put together fairly good at-bats. McNeil was a little bit swing happy, but what else is new? So overall, I thought, this lineup definitely looked encouraging as far as what you could see moving forward. Obviously, the results weren't there in this one. I think that was partly a product of the bogus triple play, but also Jake Irvin did throw the ball well around it on top of that as well. So overall, I thought, the Mets got a good start. There's some promising signs from the at-bats that they had in this game, and I think the dam can break absolutely against the Nationals pitching staff that has, again, a really bad bullpen. In game 2, it's going to be Clay Holmes versus Brad Lord. Lord is a rookie who has made 3 starts this year, 3 appearances out of the bullpen. He has a 4.73 ERA, but a 1.88 whip, which is brutal. And the most pitches he has thrown in an outing this year is 65. So I feel like the Mets can really work him and hopefully score early and often against him, and then get him out of the game, and then get into that Nationals bullpen and wear them down for the rest of this series. Mitchell Parker is going to present some challenges in the 3rd game of this series, but then it's Trevor Williams in the 4th game. So I really think this is a must-win game for the Mets if they want to win this series, obviously, because, hey, if you don't win this game, you're not going to win the series. But even if they're trying to just take 2 in this series, this is one you got to get, because you have such a heavy pitching advantage with Clay Holmes going up against this unproven rookie who has given up a ton of traffic so far this season. So this is a real opportunity for the Mets lineup. Score a bunch of runs, get him out of the game early, really wear down that Nationals bullpen, and put yourself in a really good spot for the final 2 games of this series where, yeah, you're going to go up against a better pitcher in the 3rd game, Mitchell Parker. But now if that bullpen's tired and you work Parker out of the game and there's no triple play that aids him to get deeper into the game, you're going to have a lot of chances against this Nationals bullpen in the final 3 games to hopefully win them all and continue to keep your series streak alive, even though the winning streak is now dead at 7 games. What I want to do to close out the show today, though, is to talk about some pitching prospects. I'm going to run through the entire system at each level. Got a lot of prospects to talk about, so we'll get to all that in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets Insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. If you want to be a Locked On Mets Insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, so yesterday I broke down some of the top hitting prospects in the Mets system, and we started in low A, worked our way up to Syracuse. So today we're going to start in Syracuse and work our way down. Brandon Sproat, first pitching prospect we will discuss, the top pitching prospect in the Mets system. He had strung together 3 really good starts in a row, with the last one being a 6-inning, no runs allowed performance. Last start this week, not as good. Gave up 6 runs on 6 hits and 2 walks. Was knocked out of the game in the 3rd inning. That was against the Worcester Red Sox, who have Roman Anthony on their team, amongst others. Not an easy lineup to go through, but definitely a rough outing for Sproat. On the season, 5.79 ERA with only 13 strikeouts and 18 and 2/3 innings pitched. He has walked 10. The strikeouts being down is interesting. I think it's partly by design because we've seen Sproat now work with the 2-seam, the sinker, a little bit more. So he is pitching to contact by design, but it is still a little bit surprising that he is so far below a strikeout per inning at this point. You compare what he's doing to Blade Tidwell. Tidwell has 28 strikeouts and 22 1/3 innings pitched. So they are going about pitching in a completely different way. And it's working for Tidwell. Got a 4.43 ERA. He also has issued 10 walks. First start was good, 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run allowed. Next 2 starts, he gave up 4 runs apiece. Then he gave up 2 runs in 5 innings pitched. And then his last start, which was last Sunday, 4 1/3, allowed 2 hits, 1 walk, struck out 9. So really good performance in that one, as Blade Tidwell had his start of the season, really, to not allow a run and strike out 9. I think Tidwell is an interesting case because the Mets absolutely should keep him right where he is, starting once a week in Syracuse, trying to see if he can develop into a starting pitcher. But there is a disgusting reliever in there with Blade Tidwell if the Mets ever want to go that route, where they can turn him into another one of these multi-inning weapons. And I know David Stern has talked about, if you ever are going to shorten up one of your starting pitchers and turn him into a reliever, you can't really, turn that back around mid-season. So if the Mets ever decided to have Tidwell pitch in relief, that would be it for the year. They wouldn't then be able to stretch him back out to be a starting pitcher. So I think they're doing the right thing by him right now, letting him start. But at some point this season, depending on the state of their bullpen, and I can't believe I'm just realizing now, I forgot to mention until this point in the show that Brooks Raley is back. So a little side note there, the Mets signed Brooks Raley to a contract for this season with a team option. I haven't seen any financial details reported on that contract, but Brooks Raley, who got Tommy John surgery about a year ago, at this point, he's slated to get back into game action in June. So this guy could be a kind of near trade deadline acquisition for this bullpen, another lefty. That's really exciting news for the Mets. But again, getting back to Tidwell, depending on the state of the Mets bullpen, Blade Tidwell could absolutely be a guy that the Mets decided to shorten up in the second half, and he could be disgusting out of the bullpen if the Mets wanted to go that route. So we'll see. 28 strikeouts and 22 1/3 innings pitched at the highest level of the minors. Pretty impressive. Daniel Nunez is still pitching in AAA. He's allowed 4 runs and 9 innings of work so far. 7 walks and 12 strikeouts. Last year, he pitched 14 innings in Syracuse. He only issued 6 walks in those 14 innings, and he struck out 21. So I'm a little bit curious there. What's going on with Nunez? It doesn't seem like he is quite at his peak level at the moment, and the Mets have no need for him in the bullpen. So that's another, iron they have in the fire whenever they need him, where they can add another multi-inning reliever to their arsenal if they want to. But for now, they're going to wait for a need at the big league level, and they're going to wait for Nunez to kind of force their hand by pitching a little bit better in Syracuse. But he is healthy, which is the biggest thing. Heading down to Binghamton, got a couple of interesting starting pitchers in this rotation. 3 that I think we should be watching closely all year. Noel McLean and Jonah Tong, who are both top 10 prospects in this farm system. And a guy in Jack Wenniger that might not be too far off. He is making us take notice. He was a 6th-round pick by the Mets in 2023, had a 5.02 ERA in low A last year, but that was a little bit deceiving. I have to look at the game logs on that one because I remember he started off last year red hot, just like Jonah Tong did. Tong got the early promotion to Brooklyn. Wenniger would follow him a little bit later in the season, and when he did in high A, he was very good, 3.12 ERA and just shy of 50 innings pitched. But now he started the year in Double A, which is a little bit of a surprise for me. I didn't expect him to get that aggressive assignment when he hadn't pitched too much in high A. But we're seeing why, because he looks outstanding to start his season. His start this week was his best of the year, 5 scoreless, struck out 10. So far, Jack Wenniger has made 4 starts. He is 4-0. Now, we don't really care about pitcher record that much anymore, but the fact that he has been in line for the win all 4 times is really impressive. That's because he's gone exactly 5 innings every time. 2 times he did not allow a run. The other 2 times he gave up only 1. So he is sporting a 0.90 ERA to start the season with, listen to this, 32 strikeouts in 20 innings pitched, only 5 walks issued. He has been the best pitcher in Binghamton, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in Syracuse at some point. I think right now they're perfectly fine keeping things status quo, but if he's not getting challenged at that level, we've seen the Mets in the past, they will be aggressive with their promotions. So if Jack Wenniger strings together 5 more starts like this, at some point you're going to have to bump him up because he just looks too good for Double-A right now, which is pretty impressive because it's not the easiest of levels to pitch in for sure. Nolan McLean had his first rough start, I guess you can call it that, this week. Gave up 3 runs in this start, bumped his ERA just over, well, not just over, but he bumped it over 1 for the first time. It's now at 1.77. He had been lights out in his first 3 starts. He has 26 strikeouts and 20 in the 3rd innings pitched, has issued 10 walks. Still a really good beginning to the year for Nolan McLean, who is honestly right there now in my eyes with Brandon Sproat, just because the stuff is so good, where he's another guy that has frontline potential to be a really good top-end starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. Still has some development to do. He was a little bit raw when he came over as a prospect, a two-way guy, still trying to hit last year. Now that he's just focusing on pitching, you're seeing him get better and better very quickly, and he's another guy who could have a nice ascent up to AAA in the not-too-distant future, depending on how they feel he's getting challenged in AA and what the opportunities are for them in AAA. Jonah Tong, a little bit more of a project, it seems, at least to begin this season. He's struggled a little bit. He did strike out 9 in his most recent start in 4 1/3 innings pitched, allowed 2 runs, but only 1 of them was earned on 3 hits. Prior to that, he'd given up 3 runs in each of his first 2 starts, has a 4.73 ERA in the season, has struck out 20 batters in 13 1/3, which is impressive. A lot of that due to the 9 strikeout performance. He has issued 10 walks. We'll see if Jonah Tong can build off of that 9 strikeout performance and string together some better success over his next couple starts. Shout out to lefty Felipe De La Cruz, who is rocking a 1.98 ERA in AA right now in 13 2/3 innings pitched with 20 strikeouts to start the season. That's 2 starts, 2 appearances out of the bullpen for De La Cruz. He's been very good. Also, Joander Suarez, who is kind of getting to that point where there's the prospect fatigue, where he's not really considered much of a prospect anymore, but he's an upper-level arm that is starting, pitching depth, who so far this year has not allowed a run in 14 innings pitched. He also hasn't issued a walk. So you got to love that. He is just firing in the strike zone, getting the job done for the Rumble Ponies. Moving to high A, Zach Thornton has been the star of that staff so far, 23-year-old left-handed pitcher who was a 5th-round pick by the Mets in 2023. He allowed 1 run across his first 4 starts. That's 20 2/3 innings pitched, 0.44 ERA, 25 strikeouts to just 2 walks. He has been lights out. Noah Hall's been very good as well. Mets 7th-round pick in 2023. He has a 1.45 ERA and 22 strikeouts in 18 2/3 innings pitched across 4 starts. 21-year-old Joel Diaz has been very good as well. Has not allowed a run so far in 15 2/3 innings pitched, 18 strikeouts to 2 walks. Jonathan Santucci, the Mets 2nd-round pick this past year, is coming off a bad start where he gave up 4 runs on a couple of homers. He's got a 5.91 ERA through 3 starts. A lot of that due to giving up 4 runs. But the other 2 starts, he gave up 2 runs apiece. So hasn't been a smooth transition just yet for Jonathan Santucci. There's also some interesting relievers in Brooklyn. You have Ryan Lambert, who is the guy from Oklahoma, who the Mets drafted in the 8th round this past year, that can throw over 100 miles per hour. He has struck out 15 in 7 innings, allowed just 1 run on 3 hits and 1 walk. So his control has been pinpoint. He was in the MLB Draft League, which is sort of a showcase league prior to the draft last year, and just didn't walk anybody and was striking out the world. So that's when the Mets drafted him in the 8th round. He's a guy that can really fly through this system just because the stuff is so good. Once he figures out the secondaries to go with that fastball, I mean, you can fast track this guy to the big leagues. It's a big league fastball, but just a matter of honing in on some of those finer details. And the Mets have a really intriguing relief arm there. Another guy to mention, Anthony Nunez, never really heard of him. Drafted in the 29th round by the Padres a couple years back. I think it was in 2019, so it must have been out of high school. My guess is he was a minor league signing. I don't even really know where he came from, but he's not allowed to run so far in 8 2/3, and he has 15 strikeouts, so he's been really good. And then you have Dylan Ross, who's another guy that's lighting up the radar gun. He has 12 strikeouts in 6 2/3 innings pitched, has allowed just 1 earned run. Moving down to low A, Will Watson, the Mets' 7th-round pick last year, is off to a great start. He's allowed 3 earned runs in 16 2/3 innings pitched for a 1.62 ERA with 20 strikeouts and only 3 walks. Mets' third-rounder from this past year, Nate Dahm, is pitching to a 3.52 ERA in 4 starts with 19 strikeouts to 4 walks. His last start was his best of the season, 7 strikeouts in 4 innings pitched. Matt Allen is staying healthy, which is the most important thing. He's made 4 starts, only pitched 10 innings. They're not having him go too deep into games, but he's allowed only 3 runs, 12 strikeouts to 5 walks. He has a 2.70 ERA. And then another name just mentioned that has some really good stuff is Frank Elisalt, 19th round pick by the Mets last year out of Nova Southeastern University. My wife's getting her MBA from that university. It's right down the street from me. Elisalt has been awesome. 1 earned run on a solo homer in 8 1/3, 14 strikeouts to 4 walks. A guy that is popping up on social media for Stuff Plus. That's just basically indicating who has the best stuff in the minor leagues. So he definitely is a name to watch as another potential high leverage reliever down the line. I mean, he's in low A, so it's early, but if he keeps up, this early season success, he's 23 years old. He could be in high A in no time. And, if he has success there, you never know how quickly he can fly through the system. But the Mets certainly have a lot of intriguing arms right now that are having plenty of success in the farm system. You'd like to see Brandon Sproat have a little bit of a better run of things, but AAA is not an easy level, particularly Syracuse, for whatever reason. The Mets seem to have the worst luck with their pitching prospects reaching that level. Seems like if it's not Christian Scott, everybody has struggled in Syracuse. Jose Buda had a lot of success there last year as well, but he's a big league arm. So we'll see what Sproat's progression continues to be from here. We'll see how Blade Tidwell continues. Those are the 2 guys that you can still look at and think about a big league impact. But then when you get into AA and high A, there's a lot of arms, especially from the reliever front, that have a lot of upside. So it's good that the Mets continue to develop pitching, and hopefully they'll get to the point in 2026 and beyond where they don't have to buy a whole new staff every single offseason, and they're going to have some homegrown starters that are filtering in there that are helping the Mets get by without having to go into every single free agent market saying, all right, we need to sign 3 starting pitchers and a couple of relievers. That's where you want to get to eventually, and the Mets are well on their way. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Tomorrow, I will have another show breaking down whatever happens on Saturday afternoon as the Mets take on the Nationals. Late afternoon start. I think it's a 4 o'clocker. So I'll break down whatever happens in the game, preview what lies ahead, and talk about anything intriguing that happens in the minor league system. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show, Locked On Mets. If you want to be Locked On Mets Insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Check out Locked On MLB Game Night. This is a breakdown of everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can find it on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or the podcast feed, and it'll have little snippets from all 30 of our team-specific hosts and a couple of hosts that will bring you around the league and tell you all of the latest going on in Major League Baseball. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube.